The following program is rated TVMA. This program may contain strong opinions, explicit language, and possible adult themes. The opinions expressed are not necessarily those of the Smoke Free Radio Network or its affiliates. This program is meant for mature adult audience. Viewer and listener discretion is advised.
Hey folks, P. Basardo here, and you're listening to the Smoke Free Radio Network.
That was interesting.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition. And I've got to figure out where this echo is coming from because it's going to drive me straight up the wall. Swear to God. At any rate, we'll figure it out as we go along. Here's the thing. We have a ton of things that have happened even in the last very short period of time that is just an unreal kind of thing going on. And I mean, it's driving me up the wall in that fashion because there is just so much that has happened. And I'm like, okay, where are we going to go with this? How are we going to address all this? What is it that we're really going to do? Today is that famous day for most people. And I would tell you it would be like this. Today, November 8th, 2018. Why is that date important? It is the date that all ingredient submissions have to be done, but to the FDA. Now, they have said earlier that there's not going to be any, and I mean zero, there's not going to be any kind of extension across the board. And I'm like, okay. So if you didn't get it done in the FDA's website or the CTP portal, or if you didn't put it on a thumb drive and have it marked in the mail by today, you have some massive issues. Unless, of course, the FDA came out with an extension. Oh, magically they did, because they knew hands down that they would get slapped with probably lawsuits that would be out the wazoo. So what does that look like, you ask? Ingredient listing deadline extended for small-scale manufacturers and importers impacted by recent natural disasters. And we can take a look at it. And this is right from the FDA's website. You can take a look at all of the places that might have had a hurricane, a mudslide, anything that has gone wrong. They're even saying typhoon, severe storms in Kansas, Wisconsin, Virginia Hurricane Florence, Georgia Hurricane Michael, Florida, New York severe storms and flooding. And it gives a list of all the places that are given an extension because of natural disasters. And that extension, let's take a look. FDA extended the compliance date for ingredient listings requirements to May 8th of 2019. So if you live in an area where there has been a natural disaster that is listed by the FDA, they're giving you until May 8th of 2019. This is the one that everybody needs to look at. and I will read it verbatim. For small-scale tobacco product manufacturers and importers of deemed products on the market as of 8/8/2016, not affected by recent natural disasters, the compliance date remains November 8th, 2018. So if you were in one of those areas, and you can go to, it's the ingredient listing deadline extended for small-scale manufacturers from the FDA. If you live in one of those areas, you have an extension. If you don't, today's that day. Today's the day that nobody, hands down, can theoretically make any change to their product ever again. Now, I'm sure that people like myself, other manufacturers that have been following along, following the rules, we're good. We haven't touched it since 8/8/2016. It's been the same recipe, the same stuff, all the way through. We know that's not true for some people. So, again, today's that day. And we know that unless you're on the West Coast, and I don't even think that they're open out there, there's no way you're going to get it postmarked unless you bought a pre-postmark stamp of some kind. There's no way you're going to get it postmarked by today, and that means no extension, no bullshit. It's done. So today's a huge turning point. Without a shadow of a doubt, today is a huge turning point. Ingredient listing due. I'm hoping everybody got it in. I'm hoping that everybody got it through. We'll just keep hoping. There is a bunch of things, like I said, that I want to cover. One of the later on, we have two people coming on, Mr. Alan Davis and Mr. Sherwin Mena. Now, both of these gentlemen have day jobs, things that they have to finish up, so they're running a little bit later than what I started. But when they come in, it's going to be about 7:30, quarter till 8. When they arrive, we're going to take another hour and we're going to talk about an absolute bullshit freight train that everybody, if you're standing in front of it, you're going to get run over. But places like the Truth Initiative, they're trying to sell you a bag of shit. Manipulation and a bunch of other garbage is going on. And it is not good. And we're going to cover that. But we're actually, I'm going to work with them, and we're actually going to start earlier where they were concerned. But my next thing, this came out November 2nd from, again, Scott Gottlieb and the FDA. The statement from the commissioner about youth e-cigarette use, and that's one of the biggest things that is the theme throughout the next couple of hours, is this nicotine for kids bullshit. And it is. It's straight 100% bullshit. There's no doubt about it. This guy, and he said, over the last couple of months, we've been listening to people, we've been thinking about this. And they said teens have also reached out to get in touch with the FDA, concerned about their addiction. And how can they help their friends? Which only fuels the public perception that there must be this epidemic if these teens are calling in. But this one cracks me up. Now, the FDA is supposed to be this big Food and Drug Administration that takes care of public health, right? And we know medicating kids is not an answer. But yet, what does he propose? On December 5th, they're going to have a public hearing. A public hearing to discuss the efforts to eliminate youth e-cigarette use. Eliminate. They're not talking about curbing, people. That word eliminate is there for a reason, and we're going to check into that in just a minute. They're saying we want to eliminate youth e-cigarette use with a potential role of drug therapy to support cessation among youth and the issues impacting the development of such therapies for children. Break it down, what does it mean? They think that there's such an epidemic of nicotine use in kids that they want to come out with a patch of gum, a lozenge, or a drug, like Shantex or God knows what, for youth to break their habit of nicotine use. That's how far they're willing to go to say that this thing is so huge that it's blown out of proportion. They want to come across and make a drug for kids to stop nicotine use. You'll notice, please notice, nowhere does it even bother to mention coming up with a drug to help any youth quit smoking. They don't give a shit about that, evidently. But they want to come up with a drug so they don't have this epidemic of nicotine. Really? And they want to hold that hearing, and they want to talk about it with people, and they're going to do it next month. No, not next. Oh, yeah, it is. It's actually next month, December 5th. I can't even fathom how they could wrap their brain around coming out with a drug for kids. And I've seen pictures running all over the place now. The campaign for tobacco-free kids, they come out with all this strong language and the Truth Initiative and all that garbage. And then there are people that are starting to make response-type pictures to help people understand more truth of what is happening. And one of them was, here's a mom packing her little kid. So did we get your nicotine gum and your throat lozenges and your patch and your Santex? We got that all packed in. And the little girl goes, you're the best mommy ever. It sounds ludicrous, but that's what the FDA wants to do. They want to turn around and they want to say, hey, guess what? We want your kids to have more drugs. Like the ADAH symptoms weren't bad enough that they wanted to medicate the hell out of every kid that couldn't hold their attention because they were daydreaming about something. Oh, your kid has ADHD. No, they don't have an attention deficit problem. And no, they don't need drugs. Yes, some of them do. There is an honest-to-God problem. I get it. But the doctors that were doling this shit out are now going to be the new doctors that are going, oh, hey, your kid's hooked on nicotine. You're going to let me write you a prescription for that. Go and get this filled. Bullshit. I'm going to turn around and say this simply because I'm hoping if somebody, somewhere through the evening, the phone lines are open. You can call in at 215-383-5752. And again, here in a little while, we're going to have Alan Davis and Sherwin Mena coming on, and we're going to be talking about more advanced kind of things after that. And coming up next, if everybody remembers, back in, I don't even know, it's been almost 60 days. If you remember, ironically, that the FDA had turned around and sent out all of these letters and all of this stuff to 1,300 retailers and 5 major manufacturers. And those 5 major manufacturers were Vuse, Mark 10, Juul, Logic, and hell, I can't even remember the 5th one. I did read something ironic about that, though. The reason that you hear all of the tobacco-free kids and all of the groups like that, you don't hear them talking about the Vuse, which is owned by cigarette manufacturers. You don't hear them talking about anybody that is a cigarette manufacturer and they have a product. You don't hear them talking about that. And I just learned by people that are in a Vaping Legion and other places, because it is written into the Master Settlement Agreement that those kinds of groups can't speak negatively or attack the cigarette company. So who does that leave? Juul. That's why you don't hear anything else about the other top 5. Isn't that ironic? It's wonderful how they wrote all of that in place. Yeah, that's a whole bunch of shit all by itself. Okay. Going back to this for a minute. If you remember, they gave these folks 60 days to come up with a way to get kids to stop doing nicotine. They sent their warning letters out. Okay, but they gave these top companies 60 days in order to come up with a way so teens would no longer want to use their product. Now, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they have come across with some decent material. Okay? Some. Altria pulled a bullshit move and said, well, we'll take all of our flavors off of the market except, of course, for tobacco and menthol. Those will stay there because those are the standard cigarette things anyhow. But we'll take all of our flavors off of the market until the FDA approves it. They're like the lowest of the low in selling what they do, so it's not going to really affect a damn thing. Plus, they're still going to make money selling cigarettes. So, who gives a shit? But it was very much a move designed to force Juul into possibly taking their flavors off the market. And I think that was really a cowardly kind of thing to do. But we won't get into that just yet. What I want you to do is focus back again that they had 60 days, right? 60 days. Well, guess what comes up next week? Lo and behold, their 60 days are up. And if you think the FDA is not going to yank on the chain and do something about it, you might want to think again. Less than an hour ago, I was brambling my way through Facebook, and I turned around and I ran across something serious. It was an article that was posted by Greg Connolly, the president of the American Vapors Association. And guess what it contained? From the Washington Post, the FDA plans to impose severe restrictions on e-cigarettes. You got it, folks. As soon as next week, the commissioner, Scott Gottlieb, right here, is expected to announce a ban on the sale of flavored e-cigarettes. The majority of vaping products sold, which I hate to say because I think of vape. Anytime that somebody says vape, honest to God, when you say vape, I'm thinking mod, tank, open source. You know, you've got your own juice, you put it in. Because I don't use Juul and because I don't use a lot of pod systems, I don't think about those that often. But unfortunately, he turned around and he said, the majority of vaping products sold in tens of thousands of convenience stores and gas stations, according to an agency official, a senior official, said it will impose those rules as age verification requirements for online sales also, that was one of the things that they had turned around and they had mentioned before, was the capability to say, hey, we're going to yank all this from C-stores and we're going to put it into adult vaping stores because they do a better job at age verification. So we're thinking about that as a possibility. And now you've got this stuff that is coming out, and it is telling you, here's what's coming. And it's coming, and it's not going to go away. This is one that really got me. In the same article, it said Gottlieb, who once served on the board of the North Carolina Vaping Company, was at one time viewed as an ally of the e-cigarette industry and delayed some critical e-cigarette rules shortly after becoming commissioner in 2017. Well, back then, I would agree. When he first moved the PMTA date, most of the vapors were like, yes, we got an extension. He's on our side. I think that has proven to be far, far from the truth as we know it today. And it's killing me. Absolutely killing me. So here we are. They want to pull all this stuff. And they're like, okay, but check this out. Remember that place called NATO? North American Trade Organization? North Atlantic, sorry, not North American, North Atlantic. NATO has turned around and sent a response letter to the FDA. Because back in October, when Gottlieb had turned around and he said, this is what we're thinking. I think we're looking at what we can do, what can be sold in brick and mortar stores, C-flavors, or C-places. In response to the interview, NATO submitted a letter to Gottlieb that made the following points. Check this out. Number 1, during the past summer, 96.7% of the retailers passed FDA-sponsored compliance checks by not selling an e-cigarette to underage youth. And this is coming from NATO in a response letter to the FDA. That's number 1. Number 2, retailers undertake significant efforts to train their employees how to not sell tobacco products to underage youth. Is it me, or do you want to just reach right out and give NATO like a massive hug for putting up with this stuff, you know? It said number 3, a prohibition on sale of flavored electronic cigarettes in convenience stores is unfair and unnecessary. Wow. Number 4, the FDA needs to address the problem of adults, also known as social sources, who legally buy and then provide tobacco products to minors. The 2016 FDA Population Assessment of Tobacco and Health Study found that up to 89% of underage youth relied on social sources to obtain their e-cigarettes. Up to 89% of kids who vaped had somebody of age buy it for them and either give it to them or turn around and sell it to them. And again, this is coming from NATO. The last point that NATO made, number 5, banning the sale of flavored e-cigarettes in convenience stores could result in adult customers purchasing and using other tobacco products that may be more harmful than electronic cigarettes. They're trying to be polite. Honest to God, they're trying to be polite, but what they're telling you is saying, look, if you ban flavors, you're going to have people going back to smoking. And that's been a proven study by Dr. Farsalinos already. It showed. If flavors went out the door, it'd be gone. People would go back to smoking. And they wouldn't even think twice about it. And it's like, you've got to be kidding me. That came from the FDA or from NATO. And I'll tell you what, I loved them for it. And I hope that they listen. There's one other thing that went on with that. It said, in addition, NATO has submitted to the FDA a proposal to work with the agency to create a special website for retail-related FDA tobacco regulations. NATO's going so far as to say, hey, let's create something online that actually works. Imagine that. Somebody has some common sense out there. But you also notice that it did not start in the United States. Of course not. We've got the FDA. Bullshit. Now, here's my next problem. And it's a huge problem. And I've spoken to a couple of people about it earlier today. I'm going to put up a video that I want you to watch because it's serious as shit. All right? I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's an hour long. It's Andrew, who is the vice president of the New York State Vapor Association. But listen to this.
What's up, guys? It's Andrew, Vice President of the New York State Vapor Association. The flavor ban is back. It only took one day, and we are officially featured on this lovely rule-making activities list. And right off the bat, vaping is under attack once again. Before I get into that, I just want to take a minute to thank you guys. We've seen a lot of support over the past couple weeks, specifically with our message, getting these videos out there, getting this information out there. It's huge. It's so critical to our overall efforts. I know a lot of you guys are just concerned vapors, or maybe even just family members of vapors. It's not just about the shop owners. Everyone needs to help, and one of the most important things you can do to help us is constantly spread this information that we're putting out there. We just started a brand new video series that I hope a lot of you guys have seen. When I'm done here, I'm going to go ahead and put another video up. So by this evening, we're going to have another video that kind of explains more about the Vapor Association and our overall mission here in New York State. But I want to thank all of our members for being a part of this, because frankly, we wouldn't even exist if not for our members and also our generous donors. Over the past year or so since we formed this association, we've seen quite a few donations come in from some big manufacturers, as well as some programs that are currently running that help to bring a little bit of money in on a constant, regular basis. So I really can't stress enough how thankful we are for the people who are helping with these efforts. But unfortunately, we're now to the point where the flavor ban is back. And the flavor ban isn't just back, it's back from day one. I mean, yesterday was election day. Today, this comes out and we're featured as the very first proposed rule making, as they say. But specifically right here, being requested by the New York State Department of Health, is a bill that would prohibit the sale of electronic cigarette flavored liquids. And if you go deeper into this, it's not exactly clear how they would define a flavor, but they've gone pretty far to cover just about anything that you could think of that would be considered a flavor. And it even has me so concerned that many of the flavors that we would classify as tobacco flavors may in fact fall under one of these categories, specifically if their aroma is not specifically tailored to be exactly like tobacco. And it basically reads... Now
that's a huge thing that he just said. Okay? And I need you to stop. If you have to, go to the New York State Vapor Association and listen to this thing. But again, what he said was aroma of. So if it came across and it wasn't just a tobacco smelling, didn't say shit about what it tasted like. What did it smell like? Huge, huge problem.
E-liquid with a distinguishable taste or aroma other than the taste or aroma of tobacco or menthol. So that's a very vague statement, but I mean, depending on your opinion, maybe no tobacco flavor actually has the aroma of tobacco. You know what I mean? It's kind of, and I'm not here to tear this apart on day one. I'm here to tell you guys what we plan to do about it. And I think most people are smart enough to realize, going back to last year, this flavor ban came up at the end of session. And they really, especially with the state of Albany last year, they didn't have a very good time moving any bills across the board, let alone for vaping. And as most of you probably know, after yesterday's election, the Republicans are no longer in control of the New York State Senate. The Democrats were already in control of the New York State Assembly. So now we're in a situation where we have a Democratic governor, a Democratic Assembly, and a Democratic Senate. So it's going to be much easier for bills in general to move because you won't have the two conflicting houses that are just kind of trying to keep each other down. So, and I'm not here to debate red versus blue. That's for another day. But what's most important is the path is set up in New York State for regulations to actually move, for bills to actually pass. And it hasn't been like that for the past couple of years. So as much as, our efforts in Albany have been effective, our voices have been heard. And our name, New York State Vapor Association, is specifically listed in this rulemaking along with our data as far as how many shops there are and how many jobs would be affected by this. So that's proof to me, concrete evidence, that our message is being received in Albany. We are essentially the voice of vapor for New York State, especially in the capital. And, I'm very proud of that. But the unfortunate thing is, this isn't a last-minute bill with a conflicting, with conflicting houses. This is right from the start. Session doesn't even start till January, and they're already talking about proposing this, which means they're going to have the whole session to do whatever they have to do to squeeze this through. And it's going to be a lot easier when everyone is Democrats, when all they have to do is pair up and vote for their buddies' bills and have Cuomo stamp it, and it becomes law. And the fact is, now, more than ever, our voice, the voice of the vapors, needs to be heard in Albany.
And that is such a huge, huge thing. They're not talking about a district here or a county there. New York is back on the front page to talk about banning flavor everywhere in New York State. They want to eradicate vaping. All right. Now, I pulled up this rule, the same paperwork that he's looking at. And if you look at this proposed regulation furthers this legislative objective right here by prohibiting the possession, manufacture, distribution, sale, or offer for sale of flavored electronic liquids, e-liquids, to discourage electronic e-cigarette use. Damn. I mean, seriously, they're saying they don't want you to have it. They don't want you to manufacture it. They don't want you to be able to give it to anybody. They don't want you to sell it. Nothing. They're not talking about discourage, all right? They're talking about they want to wipe it out. And it is, I don't know what. But New York wants to turn right around and they want to kill vaping. Why? Well, here again, we go right back to what we were talking about just a little while ago. If flavors are gone, what are people going to do? They're going to go back to smoking. What does that mean for New York? More money in taxation, more money in the master settlement agreement. So anybody that thinks this is about the kids, you're full of it. You have no clue what the hell they're trying to do or why. And in a little bit, when we start talking with Alan Davis and Sherwin Mena, we're going to prove that it's not about the kids. All this crap that you've heard, we're going to get into that too. But this bill that they're going to put out, and he said it very correctly, it's going to get a rubber stamp, because the Republican side of all of that were the ones that were holding things up. They were the ones that were sitting there saying, you know, check this out. Don't do this, don't do that. I'm trying to look through here to find, because they did very much mention how many stores, how much material, and I'm trying to glance through this. I had it highlighted earlier. I wish I would have left it just like that. Here it is. What he's talking about is mentioned right here. The New York State Vapor Association claims, and again, they're skewing their wording already, claims there are at least 700 vape shops employing 2,700 people across the state, although the department cannot confirm this information as no official registration mechanism for vape shops currently exist. Do you get that? Honest to God, do you get what they just said? Although the department cannot confirm this information as no official registration mechanism for vape shops currently exists. They have no clue what they're doing, and they don't care. They have an agenda. They want to push their agenda, and they're going to do it no matter what. Now, in a chat that I had a little bit earlier with the New York State Vape Association online, turns around and they said, look, if people want or need to reply to the New York Department of Health, they need to do so about the flavors. They have 58 days left to do so. And I will quote, the people need to reply to NYDOH, or flavors could be gone in January. 58 days. And flavors might be actually out the door. You go back and take a look at everything that we've been talking about this evening. And I mean, it is serious. The FDA pushing their agenda, scaring the shit out of people that they're trying to do whatever they're trying to do. And all these other places talking about flavor bans and e-cigs and kids and nicotine and the epidemic. And along comes New York, and they say, we're reintroducing an entire statewide ban. That ding means that we've got one of the people here as our guest for this evening. So what I'm going to do, just for a brief moment, I'm going to take a minute because we are already halfway. Oh, we're about 40 minutes into our show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say here, take a look at our sponsors for a quick moment, if you would, because without our sponsors, Smoke Free Radio could not do what it does. So please check out our sponsors. And when we come back, we'll have some of our guests, and we're going to get into some more nitty-gritty. I'll be right back.
Hey now, this is Dimitri with Smoke Free Radio reminding you to please show some love to our wonderful sponsors. Without them, there would be no Smoke Free Radio, and they are as follows. All the way from Florida, Moon Mountain Vapor, with locations in Florida and their liquid available for wholesale and retail, moonmountainvapor.com. Some of the best custards and tobaccos on the market from the Brickwills Vaping Company. The lovely Shell with a vapor bar, locations in Texas, Virginia, and West Virginia. And of course online at thevaporbar.com. And who says you can't have award-winning e-liquid without cartoon characters? That's exactly what you're going to get at theplumeroom.com. And finally, of course, the Vaping Advocate magazine that has generously provided the telephone lines for you to communicate with us. Thank you for your support. And finally, for you, the listener, don't forget to check out the coupons and codes page on Smoke Free Radio. Pick up some e-liquid and save some money. From all of us here at Smoke Free Radio, thank you for your continued support.
We are back, and right now I've got one of the two guests here this evening. Joining me right now, I've got Mr. Alan Davis. I know that Sherwin Mena is going to be coming in. Alan, how are you doing this evening, sir?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I am wound up after reading some of the things that are going on today. I'm just, oh my God.
Yeah, the news definitely does not stop, does it?
It never goes away. It never stops, and it's like, oh my God, what is really going on here? But I'll tell you what, some of this stuff it's frightening to me, because as other people are coming along and seeing, and when Greg Conley came out with an hour ago and said, okay, here, this is from a senior official from the FDA saying we have a problem, and next week it's going to come out that they're going to try to rip everything out of C-stores. You and I both know that this is going to be hell on wheels.
Yeah, definitely. And that's definitely not a conversation that I was prepared, to have tonight. I've got my own feelings about, Juul and C-stores and so forth. And I think I'll just mention this and I'll leave it alone. I think it's a grave mistake for our industry leaders to be praising this as a win. I think it provides a disservice to the smokers who are still looking to transition. And I think that in the long run, it's going to hurt the community as a whole.
I would agree. And I know that there are people that are going to be jumping up and down going, yes, we're all going out of C-stores and it's all going to be handled by a vape shop. I am also firmly of the understanding that neither Juul nor anybody else is going to say voluntarily, why, yes, please take away 95% of our retail locations.
Well, there may be some other news coming out, here very soon that might give you a different thought process on that comment. I can't really get into that in the details with that right this second, but let's just say that I firmly believe, and we'll talk about it tonight when we talk about the Truth Initiative and so forth. But I firmly believe that this was a planned and coordinated attack, and that Juul was just the face. It gave a name and a face to a problem, and you know, yeah, this is a conversation for another time.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was in one of the threads that you had added me to that had said, due to the actual language of the MSA, that CTFK and all these other crappy pieces of garbage cannot directly verbally attack a cigarette company.
That is correct. If you read the actual master settlement agreement, one of the guidelines is that the anti-tobacco crowd cannot call out a tobacco company by name. They can't call out the executives. They can only, talk about smoking in general. Now there have been some instances. For example, was it Lortib? What's the name of that cigarette company?
Yeah.
Starts with an L. You know what I'm talking about? But anyway, they sued Campaign for Tobacco Free Kids and actually lost. And then Philip Morris threatened to pull funding out because of some videos where they were the ads where they were putting body bags in front of the Philip Morris offices. But at the end of the day, if you read what the actual agreement states, it's illegal, and they could lose their funding for calling out tobacco companies by name. Juul, on the other hand, does not fall under the master settlement agreement. Okay, so what Juul does is it gives them an actual name and a face that they're able to personally attack, where before they were not legally allowed to have that.
So Juul, it's automatically like Juul became the poster child for all the hate mail, all the hate, all the focus, because they couldn't do it legally to Views, Mark 10, Logic, exactly, and all these other, because they're a tobacco company.
That's exactly right. And of course, an attorney could argue otherwise, but that's not what we're discussing. What we're discussing is, the actual wordage of the master settlement agreement. So,
yep.
And the Truth Initiative was one of the first ones who started, attacking Juul by name. And then, everyone else kind of picked it up, Campaign Tobacco Free Kids, and then the FDA and so forth. If you go back to before January of 2018, you don't really hear the FDA talking about Juul by name. So, you got to kind of ask what happened over the last, 11 months or so to make that such a big difference,
Well, it pushed an agenda. There is no doubt about it. Now, you mentioned the Truth Initiative, and I did some homework. And I want to walk people down memory lane about the Truth Initiative for just a minute. And I set my webcam up, and I set this up so you should be able to see what the public is seeing at the same time. And it's talking about the truth, the American legacy. The American legacy was a foundation that was set up by money from the Master Settlement Agreement. And for people that don't know, back in 1999, it was given $1 billion from the MSA. $1 billion. Not just a little bit. $1 billion to set that thing up. What I found a little bit later in all of this, because I've heard, the Truth Initiative, they can't hold 1 + 1 = 2 to save their life. They just can't do it. They're not honest about much of anything if it doesn't agree with their own agenda. I read through part of this, and some of it just absolutely floored me. There was a part in here that spoke about, at the time, this lady, the CEO, Cheryl Hilton, when they brought her in 2000 from a Columbiana University School of Public Health, her annual salary then, back in 2000, was $246,000 in 2000. Now, I went to the government for some public records. The average household income back then was $32,000. $32,000 is what it was back then. And I couldn't believe it. And they said now, by 2008, it had doubled. Her salary doubled to $570,000 plus $137,000 in other benefits and contributions. In 2008, the average household income was $41,000. And I don't know if people are really checking this stuff out or not, because it's amazing what I'm seeing between all of this.
Well, I've actually got the 2016 tax returns. The president and CEO of Truth Initiative now makes $764,642.
Wow.
The CFIO makes $641,000. The general counsel makes $454,000. The CEO makes $465,000. The executive director makes $524,000. And it just keeps going from there.
My God.
And the IRS classified them not even as a nonprofit. They were classified as a charity now.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, joining us here, thankfully, Mr. Sherwin Mena. Sherwin, how are you doing this evening, sir?
Good, Mike. How are you?
Better, because I don't have that damn echo, buzz, and bullshit squeak. How about that?
That's what makes it fun.
Oh, my God.
What were you saying, Alan?
I said, hey.
Oh, hey, what's up, bro?
Now, the reason that I brought this up, when I started to take a look at this, and I asked Sherwin earlier, when we were talking about this lovely news article piece about the American legacy. Because this thing, now, granted, this particular article was done back in 2009, but there is such an important piece of information that goes with this. Correct me if I am wrong, but that particular agency later became the Truth Initiative. All they did was change their name.
That they changed their name.
So they changed their name. They had $1 billion of MSA money. They bought buildings. They bought God knows what, and they're worth more than $1 billion now. And now people know them as the Truth Initiative.
Well, they actually, they part of the reason why they had to change their name was because it was a huge scandal that was involved around their name. They bought a bunch of bad stock options. They were part of the whole, what's the guy's name, Bernie Madoff?
Yeah, when the market crashed, the real estate market crashed in 2008, they had a lot of investments with Bernie Madoff. They had a lot of investments in real estate, and they invested it poorly, and they lost hundreds of millions of dollars. So that was a huge controversy. Plus, there was also controversies involved in one of the presidents that embezzled around $3 million, was it?
Yep.
Yeah, $3 million. So they are not without controversy. And so, this is the thing that we need to look into, dig deeper into, so that people understand, what is this Truth Initiative? People need to know that it was created by the Master Settlement Agreement, that they received hundreds of millions of dollars.
Over $1 billion.
Yeah, over what?
Over $1 billion.
Yeah, over $1 billion.
The initial payment was $1 billion.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a start. I mean, you're gifted that money, and then they went ahead and they did it with bad investments. They lost this money, and they ended up giving donations to the Boy Scouts. I mean, they were all over the place. So the question you need to ask yourself is, why are they now jumping on the bandwagon and attacking Juul.
Well, see, Truth is successful because of shock marketing.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that they do is, or what they attempt to do is gain public interest. And I think we all know, you gain people's interest in things by shocking them, scaring them.
Yeah.
And that's what Truth does. And if you watch their ads, just like the one I was talking about earlier, where they put the body bags out in front of Philip Morris, it's an effort to shock you, to scare you, to make you stop what you're doing and turn around and look. And that's what they're doing now too.
That's one of the things that
to sue them.
Philip Morris threatened to pull the funding because they were not honoring the master settlement agreement, since they did that right in front of the Philip Morris headquarters. Remember, the master settlement agreement states that they cannot attack a tobacco company by its name.
And the courts threw it out, I think.
They did.
Yeah. They said you have to name the executives by name in order for you to pass that threshold that was in the master settlement agreement.
My opinion, though, is after reading part of that case, if it would have went further up the chain to probably the Supreme Court or maybe even a U.S. Court of Appeals, I have a feeling that judge's decision would get thrown out, because the wording in the master settlement agreement is clear when it states you cannot attack the company or the executives by name.
Wow. I know that I was cruising through a couple of other things and I ran across this little beastie of a shock value. The Truth Initiative says, make no mistake, Juul is no better than big tobacco. They're trying to...
Right there, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but notice that headline. What do you see in that headline? You see the name of a company, Juul, and then you see an entire industry.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it is nothing more than shock value. They're trying to turn around and say your Juul is no better than a cigarette. That's the implication that they're trying to draw, and that blows my mind. That's how far these people are willing to go in order to bend reality, bend your perception, the public perception, to say, hey, we have a problem. It's this teen epidemic, or this is no better than having a cigarette. It's the same thing. And I can't get behind that. Like, not at all. Now, earlier, we had spoken about, and this has been a couple of days, we'd spoken about this lovely piece of garbage from the Truth Initiative.
Yeah.
This is part of an ad that the Truth Initiative put out trying to tell the public, oh my God, look how many teens and underage is actually using. It makes it look like every other teen in the world is picking up a Juul and running a Juul or running some kind of an electronic cigarette.
And what it was is, I think that I don't have the numbers here in front of me, but it was like, out of the group of 1,000.
This one.
Yeah, that's it right there. So that 56%. So yeah, out of the 60 kids who experimented within 30 days, because use within a 30-day period is not usage. I think that's more experimentation.
Yeah.
So 56 out of those 60 kids used the Juul 3 or more days. That's 33 kids. Okay. 3 or more days. Okay. That could be a weekend going out, every weekend, maybe they hit the Juul, I don't even consider that usage. And then half of those 33 use it for more than 10 days. Okay, I consider that usage if you use a product for more than 10 days.
Yeah.
Okay, that's 15 kids.
Out of 1,000.
Out of 1,000.
And that's what got me with all of this. 1.5%. 15
Yep.
kids out of 1,000.
Yeah, and this is the Truth Initiative survey, if I'm not mistaken. This is not CDC, or is it the National? Wait,
No, it's the one put on by Truth.
it is the one put on by Truth. Okay.
Yes, and let's remember, because the FDA is now ran with that's an epidemic, right? We got to remember that the FDA actually studied the word epidemic to see how it would fare with teenagers and smoking, and they found that the word epidemic actually worked really well with getting kids to put it away or don't try it or whatever. But they were afraid that it would stop adults from trying, trying vaping, basically.
Yeah.
So the Truth Initiative's ads were supposed to be geared towards, supposedly it was, do you have that slide, Sherwin? You don't, do you?
For which one?
The one where the FDA actually, when they're talking about the studies that showed that the word epidemic, how. But anyway, so the ads that used the word epidemic were supposed to be laser focused so that it only targeted adults. Were not supposed to see that at all. Okay. But then the media grabbed a hold of it and it just ran with it. Now the word epidemic is everywhere.
I just sent it to Mike.
Let me jump over and see what I can find here.
And this was presented, I think, at the most recent FDA meeting that just was held, maybe a month ago.
Yeah, it was in October.
Yeah. Supposedly, they got reamed. Someone told me that FDA was reamed, or the person presenting it got reamed for that particular study, but that still doesn't really matter, because look at what we're seeing. This is on FDA letterhead. This is what they're attempting to go ahead and use to drive a wedge within this industry, to go ahead and create something that really isn't there. They researched the way in which to paint this industry in a bad light. And I find it horrific that these statements, this survey that none of us has seen yet, that Dr. Gottlieb is saying that he's seen a dramatic 17% increase. We still haven't seen that survey yet. So we don't even know what numbers he's using. For all we know, he could be using the same kind of bullshit.
And that's it too. It is nothing but bullshit, because there's nothing, like you said, that has come across. They're not releasing any data. They're supposed to sometime in the month of November allow the rest of the world to see this. But yet it goes right back to the third part of that other slide. It is just saying, out of the 1,000 kids, only 1.5%. That is not a 17% increase by any means. I mean, that's not there. There's no way in hell that can be.
It's not the 56% that the Truth Initiative was saying. They just pulled numbers out of their ass, and made it apply to their narrative. And so that, I mean, people got to understand that it's gotten to the point where sitting back and doing nothing will get you absolutely less than nothing. So if you're on Twitter, you need to comment on this stuff. You need to go ahead and say your piece. You need to go ahead and be on the Truth Initiative. You need to be on Center for Tobacco Free Kids. All of these get posted on Twitter, and we have the ability as vapors to literally go ahead and send a message to the point where every time that they post, that they're going to regret it. We need to go ahead and show the people that are actually listening to this stuff that this is complete nonsense, statistical dribble that's being applied to further their own narrative.
I think it's definitely time that we start fighting fire with fire.
Yep.
It's time that we take the battle to their battlefield, and it's time that we make them uncomfortable.
I would wholeheartedly agree. It's the only way that things are going to change is if you change the narrative of what the public is hearing. If they're not hearing the truth, they can't make a well-informed decision to save their life.
No.
You know?
And it's going to take more than 5 or 6 people posting every day on Twitter or whatever to do it. I mean, we need thousands of people, just harassing every single post, so that the public, and it's not about, trolling truth. I mean, that's some of it, but it's not. What it's really about is Miss Susie Q, who happens to see a Truth Initiative ad on TV, and maybe she does a little research or something, pulls up, maybe she'll see it, and maybe she'll think twice before she just follows blindly to what is being said,
That's the message that we need to get across. We need to show that there is another side of this story, because we're not projecting it, and we've got the ability to do it on their own platform. And it's getting done, but we need help. This is a call out to the industry, a call out to vapors to help. Just go ahead, get a Twitter account, monitor what Tobacco Free Kids does, monitor what Truth Initiative does. Anytime they post something, you need slides from me or from Alan, just contact us. We'll give them to you, and then just post it. Make your own comment. Post.
Is there a list that somebody has that would say, here are the people that you need to watch? Like the Tobacco Free Kids, the Truth Initiative, to be able
we can make one up for you.
Yeah, we can make one up. There's not that many. Stanton Glass, yeah. The CDC, FDA, but I wouldn't go crazy with those guys. I mean, the idea is here is to, FDA is listening to them because they've got no one else to listen to. The idea here is to go ahead and make it to the point where the FDA, it's not in their best interest to listen to these guys.
You got to make it so toxic that they've got to separate themselves from them.
Yep.
And that's,
so, if you're tweeting, Gottlieb, be respectful in your communication. I'm being told, I don't know how true this is, but I'm being told that on good authority that he actually reads every single tweet he's tagged in. So, just going on there calling him a son of a bitch and an asshole and stuff like that's not going to get you into it.
That's, it's not what we need.
Yeah.
If you're going to do this, fight fire with fire, facts with facts.
We don't need any fuck FDA memes.
Yeah, it is the one thing that people, and I'm glad that you're bringing that up, because people do need to be able to say and understand what they might have just read was in fact fictitious, just like the number, the 56%. That's an alarming number, as it is skewed to be an alarming number when the truth is 15 kids out of 1,000. Because if they turn around and were to say, well, 15 kids out of 1,000 use this on 10 plus days. Okay. How many kids smoke in 10 plus days? It's ironic that they don't bother to tell you that.
Or illegal drugs, or promiscuous sex, or other things that are very harmful for youth. But think about this. If you had a job where you were making $750,000 a year, working 36 hours a week, because that's all that they wrote that he works, would you not do everything in your power to keep that job, even if it meant being deceptive?
No, absolutely. I'd be a fool to say no.
Exactly.
And that's again what grabbed my attention in that one article about American Legacy is within 8 years they doubled their salary to something that was over $500,000. And I printed this thing out because I had to look at it a couple different times. In 2008, the median income was $41,000 for one job. $500,000 way back then. That was a shitload of cash.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine that it has grown incrementally in size, in comparison, in everything else. And I'm busy scrolling up through the chat that you had added me to, simply because I want to show people what some posts are being replied with, and the one where the lady is packing her daughter's lunch, just that one drove home in such a way that it wasn't even funny, because it is going to become true. If the FDA puts their hands out there and they create a new drug to be able to give to kids and say, here, take this every day because you have a nicotine addiction, when 15 kids out of 1,000 might have an addiction, maybe. I mean, that just floored me. How the hell can they even think about turning around and saying, we want to come up with a new drug to be able to treat a possible problem?
Oh, they're creating a problem to create a solution.
And
Right. And they've already told us that, they're working on new drugs to provide,
that is the one thing that I know to be true, is they created an epidemic, and now they're going to try to say, oh no, don't do that.
Well, and you got to look at too, who profits from, the pharmaceutical side. So if like Scott Gottlieb's remarks, what was it last week about, we're looking at new and experimental, medications to give, youth who are addicted to, and I believe he actually used the word Juul. So you have to look at like Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, who receives a lot of funding from GlaxoSmithKline, who makes nicotine replacement patches or gum, which, by the way, they receive over $1 million a year from the Truth Initiative.
Here's that slide, that picture that I wanted people to be able to see, because it is so true. This was the one about the teacher asking all the kids if they had turned around, and did everybody take their Shantex today? We poke fun at it, and yet it's the truth of what is going to happen if they are allowed to turn around and create another drug for an industry that does not need it.
You also have got to understand that the Tobacco-Free Kids was started by the Robert John Woods Foundation, which is basically Johnson & Johnson. They gave the money to start Tobacco-Free Kids, and Johnson & Johnson manufactures Nicorette gum and the patch
with a wonderful fail rate.
Yeah, but what better reason to keep people off of something that would cut into their sales than by having Tobacco-Free Kids use the money from that foundation, which they continually give to them, and use their leverage, use Tobacco-Free Kids' leverage to go ahead and come out as the authority in what is right and what is wrong, and let's demonize this industry. Let's go ahead and make it an epidemic. Let's call it big tobacco, and that's exactly what's happening. Remember, we're getting attacked on three fronts. We're getting attacked from Tobacco-Free Kids, Big Pharma. We're getting attacked by the Truth Initiative with the Master Settlement Agreement, the money that they received and continue to receive through tobacco sales. And the third one is Altria. Altria is using their powers to go ahead and kill Juul because they are too competitive for their products. And they're using student programs, probably from 2007, 2008. And then around 2014, they started doing something in regards to juuling, where they said juuling was an epidemic. Juul was never an epidemic around 2014. But you saw paperwork showing that they were creating programs that this was a problem.
Because they knew then that they couldn't compete with it. Juul was a brand new product at that time, and they already knew right away that, wait a minute, this is gonna, I can't compete with this. And so they started whispering juuling in people's ears, and not only, it started out with, like Sherwin said, these were school programs, so they were whispering this into the ears of youth who had no fucking idea what the hell they were talking about up until that point.
Yeah. So Altria gives money to Karen SAP, their student assistant programs. And they got a nicotine cessation program called Project Connect. And Project Connect gets funding directly from Altria. And Altria, and I'll quote here, is, "We challenge our partners to think differently about the way they are meeting the needs of young people and about the way they are connecting with one another. And we're responsive to the changing data and trends in underage tobacco use. From our research on underage tobacco prevention, we saw an increase in use of e-vapor products among high school students. We were able to work with the Karen treatment centers to expand the cessation programs for high school students to address e-vapor use. We also know from research that lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer questioning youth engage in risky behavior." So what was the answer? They came out with these terms called the ENDS industry. They also call vaping, but all the kids say juuling now. And then the vaping is a big tobacco plot. This is coming from Altria. Altria is doing, they're literally giving the framework to these student assistant programs to destroy a competitor.
Altria is also Marlboro, correct?
I think so.
I believe so.
Yeah. And it's insane. And I think I sent you something like that, Mike. I don't know if you had it, but it's you should read it. It's absolutely fascinating. If you go ahead and you look at it, kids can easily get products from local vape shops and use gift cards to buy them online. It's the Wild West. The ENDS industry, aka Big Tobacco, targets youth with kiddie flavors and trendy products, most recently the Juul. And this was in 2014.
Before any of this even became public knowledge, for the most part.
Yeah, 2014 or 2015, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And in 2000, Karen mobilized against Juul in 2017. Yeah, here it is, 2017. My mistake. That's when they started doing this.
Wow. I can't get over some of that. It is unreal.
Yeah.
When you turn around.
Like I said, yeah, it's we're getting attacked on three fronts, and people need to know what those three fronts are, and Altria, Juul, Truth Initiative, and tobacco-free kids, Big Pharma. Those are the enemies. Those are the people that are coming after us, coming after this industry. And we have the ability to do something about it. We've got the ability to go ahead and stop tobacco-free kids and the Truth Initiative at their own game, because we're consumers.
And that's it. People don't pay attention. And by people, I want to say that the people that either don't vape or don't smoke or don't use any kind of a tobacco product at all. Joe Public, that is like a clean whistle. They probably drink their ass off or something. I don't know. But they don't pay attention to what is true and what is going on. All they do is they listen to Fox News and they catch this bit of saying, oh, yeah, nicotine epidemic among kids. And that's all they know. And they don't bother to look further into it. And you're very correct. If we, as a vapor community, don't start to say, that's wrong, that's dead wrong, no, that's a lie, the public is never going to know. Because it'll be consistently one-sided.
The sad thing is our industry in itself is buying into the bullshit as well. I mean, it's so infuriating to sit on Facebook and watch people who, are in this industry supposedly, to convert smokers, and then turn around and bash Juul as a company constantly. I'm sorry. In my opinion, we need Juul for the fight. It's kind of like what I feel like is going on right now. It's like I said earlier today in one of my chats. What I feel like is going on. It's like the stories you used to hear if someone was giving you advice if you were getting ready to go to prison. What have you always heard? You walk up to the biggest, baddest motherfucker and you punch him in the mouth, and then everybody else in the prison is scared. And that's kind of what's happened with Juul now. You knocked off the big boy on the block, and by doing that, what's going to happen to all the small timers? But not only that, if I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Here's
and
go ahead, Sherwin. Here's the question that I have, and Bill Tarling brought it up in the chat room. How long is it going to be before Juul sells out to big tobacco?
Once that happens, you will never hear Juul brought up again by the anti-tobacco companies or anti-tobacco organizations.
Because of the MSA.
That's part of it.
Yeah, that's part of it. I just think, no reason to now. They won. And I think a lot of this has to do, I think Alan had a good theory that Altria went to Juul and offered them some money to buy them out, and Juul said no. And that's when you see around 2017 where they went ahead and they started this campaign.
Really? Now that's a hell of an interesting thing.
It's a theory.
It's a theory.
But it's a pretty damn good one. Because it helps fill in the gap of where did this all really start? When did it start? And then that elusive question of why did it start? Because
the sooner you realize that everything in the health arena, none of it has anything to do with actual health and has everything to do with dollar signs, the sooner you realize and your eyes open up to what's really going on.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to sound all conspiracy theorist, tinfoil hat, but it's the truth. I mean, look at Chantix, for example. The FDA has removed the black warning from Chantix. Over 544 suicides have been contributed to the use of Chantix, but the FDA has completely swept that under the rug. So why is that? Over 3,400 people have been seriously injured because of taking Chantix, but the black label warning that's put on the most serious, medications has been removed.
I read that, and that I found alarming because that was something I did not know. That all of a sudden the major warning that should be on the package or on the drug magically disappeared. It's like, what the fuck? Really? Why?
Why now? Look at the timing.
2016, I believe it was, Chantix sales dropped by almost $100 million.
God.
Might have been 2015. Might have been before that. I may be wrong on the dates. But right after that is when they really started, going to the FDA to remove the black box warnings because they contributed their loss of sales due to that black box warning.
Yeah. And I thought I read something recently that there was a survey with doctors who are now reluctant to recommend e-cigs. I think close to 50% of the doctors that were surveyed are reluctant to recommend e-cigarettes as a less harmful.
I read the same thing. And the reason was nobody told them it's okay to recommend that.
No.
Yeah.
But not only that, what does Pfizer pay these doctors to recommend their products?
Yeah.
I mean, we know for a fact that this is an ongoing issue in the medical field. Look at the opioid crisis. How did the opioid crisis start? It started because doctors were writing prescriptions for pain medicines to everyone who come in and said, I had a headache. Yeah,
and now all of a sudden they've come out with yet another drug that is hundreds of times more powerful than morphine and God knows what. What the hell do we need another opioid drug on the market for?
I think that's more for military application, from what
But
I've
it'll
read.
transition to mainstream, just like morphine. Morphine, morphine was widely used, on the battlefields, and it eventually transitioned to, you'll
Yeah, the
get people
little
who
the little
have
morphine
opioid
steroid
addictions.
packs.
Yeah, you'll have people who have opioid addictions to where, the normal drug just doesn't cut it for them, and they need something stronger.
But if I was looking correctly, this new drug is such a small pill that it's not even funny. It's no horse pill. This thing's tiny, like a small aspirin.
I don't know. I didn't see that. The one I seen was like a tube, like a liquid, where it could have
Yeah,
been
I
like
saw
a
I thought it
syringe.
was an injector.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think the intention is to give it to the medics on the battlefield, that they can. I mean, basically like giving, like they used to do, where they'd give them a shot of morphine.
Yeah, just in that little stirret and then stick it in
But
you. And
after World War II, how many people come home? How many soldiers come home addicted to morphine because of getting the injections on the battlefield?
that's one thing I really don't know. I would have to assume it was rather high,
Yeah.
but I really don't know.
If anybody takes anything from what we're talking about, the time now is to get smart, not get stupid. The time now is to take action, not be lazy. The time now is to speak up and yell and not be quiet. The idea behind all of this and the reason why we're here is to put a message to everyone and to make sure that they understand that the industry will be dead in 4 years, maybe even sooner. And if you don't do anything about it, then you're just as guilty of contributing to it. That's my philosophy.
I would agree. If it is become a massive point to say, if you are not part of the solution, you are part of the problem.
Yeah. So, fun time's over. I hate to say it, but now we're fighting to survive. So,
Sherwin, I don't know if you saw earlier that New York has their flavor ban back out in New York
yeah,
State.
I saw that. I
That
also
scared the
saw,
hell out of me. One day after
yeah,
the election.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't find it surprising.
Yeah.
There was one other thing. Alan and I were talking about it, I think, before you came in. Greg Conley made a post about the Wall Street Journal. I don't know if you guys would still be able to see this on
Oh, yeah.
your end.
Yeah, I read it.
They said as soon as next week, the FDA commissioner is expected to announce a ban on the sale of flavored e-cigarettes, the majority of vaping, in tens of thousands of convenience stores and gas stations. Do you think that can actually happen?
I think they're going to get sued. I think I see lawsuits coming, personally, number one. Number two, I don't care whether you like Juul or not. The idea is that it's still a horrible idea for a number of reasons. One, the hell with the smoker is basically what they're saying. Screw them. If you smoke, keep getting your smokes. Keep getting your smokes. Doesn't matter.
That's what
I
Alan.
mean, it's funny that you just brought that up, because Patrick Reif just commented on one of my Facebook posts. And basically the post was a picture of the Trojan horse, and it says, "Be careful of gifts from the government regulatory organizations. What you perceive as a win today could be your downfall tomorrow." And Patrick said, "No ANPRM, no comment period. Yeah, there are probably attorneys on big tobacco Rolodexes ready to file suits, but really, why bother? They'll just step aside and pull back, sell cigarettes, and continue their PTMAs. Once the FDA has no one else to target, they'll just move on to the open market. Once small businesses are crushed, they'll just reintroduce once they've gotten marketing orders."
Yeah. So now everyone says that what a great idea. This is going to save the vape shops. What it just did, it just put a bullseye bigger that you can see from outer space on our back. So if you don't think they're going to be coming after us and the flavors, you got another thing coming.
That's what I was thinking when I got up and I started reading some of this news today. I'm like, oh my God. Everybody had started to say it.
Do you actually think, does anyone here actually think that they're doing this for public health, for the kids? They're doing this to get rid of this industry, period.
Yep.
The only reason why they're doing it.
It's what it's Gottlieb had it in his last, and I already closed the window out, or I'd pull it back up. He used the word eliminate. There was no more curb. There was no more help transition. The word eliminate. Now, anything
Over
that
the
comes
past
out,
4 months, his language has changed dramatically.
yeah, they're,
Like you said, using that word as opposed to what it was before.
that word scared the hell out of me because and as well as I do, anything that comes out of the FDA in a press release is a very finely crafted piece of manipulation and wording. And they pick and choose all of their words extremely carefully so that they can either confirm or deny or whatever. But to use the word eliminate, that says that they want to take vaping and go dink and get rid of it.
Yeah, or give it to people who they can deal with.
Yeah.
The only thing that anyone ever could say that Juul marketed to teenagers was the flavors and the fact that their old marketing used to contain pictures of attractive looking people and bright colors.
Yeah, social lifestyle pictures.
Go on Instagram and look to see what the hell you see posted on Instagram. If you don't think that the next target's going to be this right here, you're delusional.
Yeah, I know that there are people jumping up and down going, oh, yes, the Washington Post, it's going to come to
frustrating as hell.
Vapor stores, No, guys, it's the first step. It's like the Germans going to Poland and saying, turn your guns in, we'll take care of you. And then they can roll right over them.
Yep.
Has the government ever stopped regulating?
No.
No.
Have you ever heard of a period in time where they said, you know what? We're good. We're going to leave it up to you now. No.
Never.
Never in the history of our short term as a country.
What do you think is going to happen? And I'm reluctant to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. What do you think is going to happen when that freshman in high school is sitting in class and he has a mod explode in his pocket while in the middle of class?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think the next attack is going to be at that point?
It's going to be the batteries. It's going to be the mods.
Because as good as I do, removing the products from C-stores will not stop the influx of children getting their hands on the product.
No.
The survey that came out that said, asked where did they get their products from? The majority of them got them from social. They got them from someone who was of age who went and bought it and sold it to them, like high school seniors or relatives or whatever else.
Yep. That was one of the things that it turned around and it was the piece from NATO, that they had said like 80 some percent of all nicotine products used by minor were achieved or gotten from people of age that either gave it to the minor or sold it to them. So that the people of age,
they don't want to talk about that because, again, I'm still reluctant, because I'm going to get bad press for this, but people are reluctant to have that conversation because now it means that they're limiting sales to, those who legally can buy the product.
Yep. See, this goes right back to a conversation that I had with former police chief, and he told me the FDA is understaffed. They can't actually enforce the law. The BATF is the one that actually has to go in and take care of sales of tobacco products to minors and, write the citations and all this other garbage. And the BATF is understaffed and cannot uphold the law.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, okay, you've got parents that don't want to parent. They want a nanny state. You have a government that is saying, we have a law. Oh, we're sorry. We can't enforce it because we don't have anybody to do it. So we have to find somebody to blame. Oh, yep, Juul, you're it. And vapor products, you're it. You've got to go.
Yeah. So everyone just needs to realize that this is not a gift that is being given to vape shops. It's going to be a burden. It's going to be a heavy burden. And a lot of the responsible shop owners know that there's more irresponsible shops than there are responsible shops that are out there. A lot of them are down the road from the responsible shops. A lot of the responsible shops are hurting because they're doing the right thing. So to go ahead and have this burden shifted on us, I guess, like, you want to take it, that's fine, but there's going to be a cost to it.
That's setting an entire industry up for failure. Because the minute it runs any kind of threshold, oh, you guys can't handle doing age verification, you're all done.
Yeah.
What would you gentlemen tell people, besides getting out and actually responding to Twitter feeds and things like that? How can anybody that would either watch this or listen to it later, how can they help do their due diligence or do their part to educate the public?
Well, I mean, as with any issue, you need to know a little bit about what's going on. So that can apply to voting. And, you know, low voter, the reason why there was low voter turnout is because a lot of people just didn't care, you know. But a lot of people that did vote did care because they researched who they were voting for, at least to the best of their ability, and they decided to do something about it. The same thing applies here. You need to know a little bit about what you're doing. CASA is a great source for information if you're a consumer. If you're a vape shop owner, you know, your state organization will give you a tremendous amount of knowledge on what you need to know. If you're a consumer and you really want to get involved in this, you know, talk to your representative, talk to your state senator, talk to your federal representative, talk to your federal senator. I mean, just going in there and having a conversation, tell them your story is 100 times more powerful than going ahead and hearing it from, you know, sometimes the industry people in suits. You know, there's a lot of things that you can do, you know, but you got to do something, because if you don't do it, you know,
you're part of the problem.
Yeah, you're part of the problem. You can kiss this industry goodbye.
What do you believe, either of you, what do you think the likelihood that there is a lot of attention being paid now to New York State and their flavor ban by other states?
I think New York is a large, you know, a large state that people look up to, and you know, I believe that what happens. Notice New York State is the entire state, as opposed to California. It was cities, individual cities. The entire state is imposing this. If it passes in New York, you better damn believe you're going to see it go stateside or go, you know, all over. I also believe that the reason that New York decided today to pull the regs, you know, they said that they wanted to have legal review, but I believe that it has something to do with Scott Gobley's remarks today, and I believe they're waiting to see what's getting done on a federal level before they make a decision to continue to go forward.
Yeah.
What's really important about, you know, how that bill reads is, you know, it's not just the vape shops that are in trouble. It's not just the C-stores. It's not just the e-liquid manufacturers. You as a consumer can be found guilty of a crime for being in possession of a flavored nicotine product. So if I have a bottle of juice in my pocket and I'm walking down the street in New York City, I don't know if there's fines, jail time, or what they're talking about, but notice how it says possession of a flavored nicotine product.
Yeah, within the state of New York.
Yes.
Not just New York City. The state of New York.
Yeah, that was one thing that I pulled up on their thing. They are trying to outlaw, really, prohibition. Mm-hmm. You can't have it. You can't distribute it. You can't sell it. You can't have it on your person. Nothing.
If you head into Maine and you vape, you've got to drive around New York.
Yeah.
To get to Maine.
Yeah, if you
or your flavored liquid weight.
If you went through New York and they pulled you over and this was sitting in your cup holder, you're going to get a fine. If that flavor ban goes through, I don't care if it's a 20 mil, a 30 mil, a 60 mil, 100, 120, you're in deep shit.
Now more than ever, state groups need funding. Now more than ever, shops need to join.
If you do business in New York, you need to be joined the New York.
That
What's it
was
called? New York.
NYSVA, New York
Yes.
State Vaping Association.
They need you bad. They are seriously underfunded.
Yeah.
that was one thing in my chat with the person that was manning the chat for the New York State Vapor Association earlier today. Because they told me, they said people need to reply. They have 58 days to reply to the New York Department of Health about the flavors. And they said the clock started. He said, you got 58 days left. He goes, plus the manufacturers and distros need to send money to the NYSVA. This session is going to be expensive.
Well, Greg Conley just actually posted that comment period is closed. So in NYVSA wants you to actually send handwritten letters into, your local representatives.
Wow. Gentlemen, I seriously appreciate both of you taking time this evening, coming in, especially after you get done with work and your busy day, to help explain to people what the truth is and what's really going on, and especially about the Truth Initiative. People need to understand, because they don't get it.
Nope.
Well, Mike, thank you for doing what you do and having us on this evening.
Hey, I appreciate you guys being here. I very, very seriously do. All right, I will catch up with both of you gentlemen again here before too long. We'll get back together and we'll do it again.
Good night, everyone.
See, and Sherwin, no squeaks, man. Believe that shit?
No, man, I missed it. I don't know what the hell's going on with this. You're like a legitimate broadcaster now.
Don't tell anybody, man.
Sorry.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. I'll catch up with you soon.
You got it, buddy. Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Night.
Again, Sherwin, Mena, Alan Davis, great guys to help join in and check everything out. Man, I'll tell you what. There is so much that is going on that people need to be aware of. They need to educate themselves. Please take the time. Go out. Check things out. Educate yourself. Educate somebody else. But for God's sakes, it is time to step up. Until next week, I hope everybody has a great weekend, and I will see you again next Thursday on Vaping in the Mic.